Hi, I'm David Bonacera, and I'm here to talk to you about a very controversial subject in natural stone. It's called crystallization, or what some people call vitrification. Well, we're going to get a lot of these questions answered because here with me is Tom McNall. And Tom McNall is going to clarify a lot of this stuff. Tom, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
So let's kind of get to the nitty-gritty of this whole crystallization thing.
Sure.
Nuts and bolts. What is crystallization for the people out there?
Crystallization, it's basically an easy marble polishing process that's used, I think, mainly by janitorial companies. It's used sometimes in-house because anybody can use it. I'm not a chemist by any shape or form, but I know it has waxes in it, it has acids, and it has fluorosilicates in it.
Okay, so if it has acids in it, acid is not a good thing for a calcium-based stone.
That's a true point. Some of our polishing compounds have that we use as a professional.
Those are mild, though. Those
exactly.
are used to heat up the stone so you can get that pop, but they breathe.
Exactly. They do breathe, and they don't create like a coating over the stone. They don't trap acids in the stone. And, I mean, you don't get the wear, you don't get the damage after several applications of our compounds that you do with crystallization.
Does this change the process, not the process, but does this change the compound of the floor?
Well, again, I'm not a chemist, so I don't have the exact, numbers of which atoms cohere and which bond, but I do know that it creates a different surface on the top layer of the stone. So it changes it from calcium carbonate to what's known as a calcium fluoride, which is a little bit harder than the calcium carbonate. Now, being from Canada, we have a lot of experience with ice. Now, if water is soft and ice is harder than water, and you have a thin layer of ice over a puddle, if you step on that ice, that softer surface underneath is going to give way, and the harder surface, the ice on top, is going to crack. Same thing happens with stone. You end up creating like micro fissures in the stone because you've got a harder surface over a softer surface.
Can the stone breathe with this crystallization process?
No, and once it does start, like you have it cracks, and you get some water in there from regular maintenance or washing or mopping, that reactivates the acid, which further erodes the stone underneath.
Oh, of course it does. It's like when somebody tries acid wash like precast.
Exactly.
In a yard, and they don't, they use an acid wash, and they don't neutralize it, and every time it rains, it just activates again and again and again.
Exactly.
Okay, in Las Vegas, it's
the king of crystallization here.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that has to be done? Is there other ways of doing this?
Well, I'm in a position where I don't think crystallization ever has to be done. Regular marble polishing, if done properly, I think is quicker. You can do it right after grinding. You don't have to wait for the floor to dry. If you use the crystallization process because you've got iron and the floor is still wet from grinding, you're going to create oxidization. The floor is either going to go black or it'll cause oxidization in the form of rust on certain stones.
Okay, but Tom, in Vegas here, we see
everybody's got a story. In Vegas, they say they're too busy, but you know what? Yeah, I've seen it in locations that are just...
I know, but you go into the floors and you see a lot of the floors are just breaking apart.
100%.
I mean,
I have yet to see a really good-looking floor in town.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, they just start suffocating and breaking the floor apart.
I've seen some floors that got big holes in them and spalling that are created by the acid damage.
Okay. Everything's against it so far. From mechanical polishing to crystallization, which keeps the shine last longer?
I would think 100% mechanical polishing would keep the shine longer.
Yeah,
because you're not creating that harder surface.
And some of the clients that I have, they'll say, yeah, he came in and polished 6 months ago, and it just lost everything. And I'm like, if you cut it and redo it, you're good for at least 5 years if you're in a home, not in a business.
You're also rinsing the floor afterwards, so you're getting rid of any residue, whereas with crystallization, all you've done is trap the acid inside a coating on the surface. If you go to the public bathrooms in the Mirage Casino, okay, right off the valet, they've got marble in there where you can see where the acid from crystallization, not only is it dull like a wax after months of use, but it's eaten away at the softer layers of the stone, and the hard veins are protruding up. So it's wearing away the softer minerals of the stone, but not the harder minerals, and it looks like a bad wax job. So
breaking it down, should you cut this at any time? I mean, should you cut it open so it can breathe again, or will that cause further damage to the floor?
It's going to take a lot of grinding to level that out because of the veins are at all different levels within the floor.
Holy moly.
And so, I mean, even if you did, I mean, depends on the thickness of the stone, whether it's like 3/8 tile or whether it's an 1.25 inch slab. How much life you have, how much acid damage has been done over the years. And, I mean, it can be saved if it's early enough, but if you let it go too long, it gets to the point where it's almost, it could just destroy underneath the grinder.
Okay, Tom. Do the homeowners and the business owners who own all this stuff know about this? Do they have any idea
I would say,
much damage it's
I would
going
say
to cause?
probably 90% of the homeowners have no idea. Okay, they might have been told by what I would call ethical contractors like yourself and I. They might have been educated, but the commercial, I can't say that the commercial people are 100% innocent on this because they've had the guys like us talk to them. They've had people approach them with scientific data that shows them the damage it does.
But the homeowners, a lot of times, they'll pick somebody who does crystallization because he's the cheapest guy polishing, and they think everybody's doing the same thing.
Exactly.
It's not the same bowl of cereal
And
in two different grocery stores. Yeah. Contractors are entirely different. What they use, who's trained, you know, they don't. And a lot of you folks out there, you just think that we're all the same. We're not the same. There's a lot of guys out there who are coming into your homes who don't have a clue of what's going on, and they have no idea what stone they're working on, and they couldn't even tell you the geographical properties of that stone if they had to.
You know, Kellogg's has a saying, a slogan that says if it's not, doesn't say Kellogg's in the box, it's not Kellogg's in the box. And so the same thing with marble polishing or restoration. I mean, if you're not talking about true restoration, then you're talking about a generic brand that's going to do more damage. It doesn't have the vitamins, it doesn't have the minerals that you need.
Okay, but they're running 24/7 in Vegas and Atlantic City and that kind of stuff. Why are they still doing this?
Because it's cheap.
Because it's cheap. So it's really about money.
Pretty much. And I'll tell you something that
I've learned.
Like,
don't trouble till trouble troubles you, and they're not going to do anything until it really becomes bad?
I've talked to, I was hired for consulting at a big major name, huge casino in Atlantic City. Had problems with their crystallization. And I said to, you know, the two people in charge, I said, you guys probably don't even care. I said, because number one, I said, you're probably looking at saving the company as much money as you can until you can get a promotion or go to another company or go to Las Vegas. And the two guys looked at each other and they started smiling. They said, you know, we were just talking about that an hour ago. So I basically called their bluff and they admitted what the cards they were carrying. So I mean, most of these guys that are in charge of maintenance in casinos or large hotels, they're not looking long-term staying with this casino or this hotel.
So they really don't care.
No, they don't care. They're looking at get in, get out, save the company as much money so I look impressive so I can get my promotion. So essentially the only way that there'll be any headway made and make floors look better, number one, last longer, number two, which saves the corporation big money, because I got to tell you, any stone being replaced in Las Vegas is going to be replaced under union rates. So not only do you have to pay to have the stone taken out, removed, and taken to some waste facility, but then you also have to pay huge rates to have the new stone installed. Whereas proper restoration will save you money long term. So the only way you're going to be able to get that point across, because the guys that are looking at a dollar value on a day-to-day basis, they're looking at getting to the next level. They're looking at getting a raise. They're looking at getting a promotion. Okay. So it's the CEOs you got to talk to. It's the boards you got to talk to. But you're never going to talk
to those people. You're going to talk to the guy who really doesn't care. Well,
but it's very hard, and it doesn't happen every day. And they have to understand that their middle management guys that they've put in their position are screwing them in the long run.
Okay. Wow. Okay, well, let's just pile on top of that one.
Sure.
And say, is there environmental impacts to doing this process?
Tons. How many landfills are full of stone, taking up space that has been wasted because it gets to the point where it can't be salvaged, or people think that it can't be salvaged, and so they just put a new stone in. I don't know. I know what the union rates are. You're not going to get a good slab install for a floor in Las Vegas for under $150 a square foot. So, you can restore it if you do it properly, and you can make it last longer for a fraction of that cost.
What about safety for the people who are working on this?
Again, there's guys that know the chemical makeup a lot better than myself, but I'll tell you this much from my own personal experience. When I was first in this business, in stone restoration, I used to get sore throats all the time whenever we did crystallization. I never understood it. Now, whether that's from the steel wool or whether it's from the chemicals, I've seen the math, so I do understand the math, where the molecules, you know, from the acid take away from the molecules of the calcium, and what's left is hydrogen gas. Okay, I can't explain it on paper. You know, you'd have to get a chemist.
But that's something that sounds like can get into the HVAC system in your home.
Oh yeah,
or
100%.
your business.
Why do you think there's sick building syndrome in most of these places? Because the HVAC systems are all sealed units. You've got these gases, you've got these fibers going into the system. You've got kids getting bloody noses out of the blue because of chemicals like this.
And they're using steel wool, which is a metal. Metals are not friendly to our respiratory system.
But if you think about this for a second, that hydrogen gas is released in that exchange between the chemicals and the calcium carbonate.
Lovely.
Hydrogen gas, isn't that what blew up the Hindenburg? So, I mean, there's not, and again, from my own personal experience, I've never gotten a sore throat being around a properly polished floor as I have when we did crystallization.
So some of the stuff in the business when they're doing this or in somebody's home, they have no idea if they'll be getting sick or something happens to them.
Nobody knows, and they're not. The chemical companies aren't going to tell you how dangerous it is.
Should the people working on this should at least be wearing goggles and gloves and maybe a dust mask?
100%. 100%. They probably should be wearing more, but I mean, we don't do it anymore. We haven't done it in probably 12, 15 years. So.
I have never seen anybody who does that process ever wear anything.
You can hang out in any of the bars in the casinos here in Las Vegas, and you'll see eventually about 3 or 4 in the morning, you'll see crews crystallizing. It's pretty easy. All they have is a swing machine, and they have a bottle, or either the bottle's attached to the machine, and all they do is squirt it, and they have steel wool buffing it in. Excuse me.
And that's it. Okay.
No, and none of them are wearing goggles. None of them are even wearing gloves. I mean, and I'll tell you, I've had that stuff on my fingers. It dries your hands out.
Will it burn your skin?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So if it burns the skin, then why aren't they protecting their employees?
I don't know. They're not my concern. But
is this middle management who's trying to save money, or is this the owners of a company who don't know, don't care?
Well, if it's a contractor like myself coming into a business, I mean, not myself, we wouldn't do it, but I mean, other contractors, they're not, they don't want to make it look bad, okay? They want to keep the hype down if they know. Okay, the chemical companies will never tell you that you got to wear all that unit, because then everybody will be afraid to use their product.
But they've never had a lawsuit against them because of safety things. What about the MS sheets? Does it say anything about safety on that, Tom?
Somebody who was in the industry who had a habit of being very rude when he spoke once said to me that it's almost like somebody breaking wind in an elevator. He says, you know it wasn't yourself that did it, okay? And you can't prove that the other person did it, but you know somebody did it. Okay, so when you see people with respiratory illnesses, I mean, you can always trace it back and say it's because of this.
But you don't really know that it was because of that.
It's like for years, cigarette companies used to say that tobacco wouldn't hurt you. And we've learned so much over the years of how bad it is. I mean, but they always would, you know, it's bullshit baffles brains. And so, you know, but when it comes down to it, you cannot escape the fact of how much damage is done by crystallization. I mean, I know you're focusing on the health issues. I mean, I wish I could comment more on that. But I am looking at the stone issues, and I see how bad the stone is, and I know that nobody using, you know, like...
But they're running... Okay, I'm going to be the other side of the fence. But, Tom...
Go to Italy. Are they finishing the stone with crystallization chemicals? No.
Not a chance.
No, they're using diamonds, and they're using those bricks, which are essentially the bricks that are made up of the same polishing compound that we use today.
So it really is about money.
It's all about money.
The casinos, I mean, the thing is, when you're looking at a shine from a lower level, it always looks great. But the difference between crystallization and a mechanical shine done correctly, is that you can actually look down and see that mirror.
Exactly.
In crystallization, you can't see the mirror. It's orange peeled.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty ugly.
Orange peel is a very common effect with the crystallization.
Yeah, and when you do it too much, it ends up looking plastic over time.
It'll look plasticky. Your edges will all be rounded. On certain species of marble, you'll end up with like higher veins sticking out because the minerals are harder, and the other minerals that are softer and more calcium, stronger with the calcium carbonate, will start wearing away. Even really hard basalts, or which are sold as granites, like absolute black, will tend to look very waxy over time, because whenever they have the little black granite diamonds or the black tiles in checkerboard patterns, the granite actually tends to look waxy. Why? Because it's essentially a wax is being bonded to the surface.
Which enables it to breathe.
Yeah.
Which causes the stone to
rot,
suffocate and break and fracture within.
Exactly.
Wow. So do you have any other thoughts on this before we go? At all sites, it's not a good process. We know it's not a good process, but a lot of people who are pushing it have a lot more muscle than some of the contractors because of its industry.
I've been threatened with lawsuits before because of articles I've written. I kind of laughed them off. Nothing ever happened, because obviously if they wanted to take me to court for what I said, they would be exposed. So it would actually do them more damage. Of course, little men always speak in a big voice, if you know what I mean. They always talk louder than what they really are. And so, I mean,
but let's say
I welcome it. If someone wants to sue me for my comments, it'll expose them more than it'll hurt me.
Let's say a casino's never gone after the manufacturer because it's broke apart.
Again, because the middle management are the people that are, they're just looking to save the company money, and then they end up, when all of a sudden the floor needs to be replaced, they just tell the powers that be that, oh, it's just time.
Does everybody kind of do this?
Exactly. It's all a bunch of finger pointing.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Wow.
We actually, the one casino we take care of in Canada, we've taken it from crystallization and taken it to mechanical polish. We've been told by the powers that be that the shines are lasting longer, it looks better when we're done, and we've proven that the
shine's going to a heck of a lot longer. A lot of times I have clients who'll say to me, yeah, we just had this polished 6 months ago, and it just lost its luster.
Yeah. When I first heard that crystallization was bad, and I didn't believe it at first because I used to do it when I first got in this business, and I thought it was an acceptable way of maintaining a floor. But then I started looking at customers' floors that we had done in the past, and they'd call us back, and I could see that every time we crystallized after, it would never look as good as it did the first time we did. Okay, and it got to the point where I would tell the customer, we have to grind this off and polish it in a different way. And they would say, no, just do what you did before because it was cheap.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's where the rubber meets the road on that.
Exactly. So
how much is it going to cost and when can you do it? And they really don't care until then it happens, and then it really is about money.
Sometimes, but I mean, we also have customers where we've always maintained it properly, and we've polished it with the compounds that have been tried and tested for hundreds of years on natural stone, and they look good, and they always look good. And then they call us back every year, and the stone always looks good every year. It never looks as deteriorated as that one customer that I have in my mind. It was one of my first customers in the stone business.
Anything you want to add to this at all before we get out of here? Because, I mean, it sounds like I know it's not a good process. I have really never done a process. I have the stuff in my warehouse. We don't use it only because the guys like to shine when you can look down and you can see the logo and the GE.
I'll tell you, crystallization is a cheap process. If it worked, my company would still be using it.
Yeah.
Okay, but when we start looking at the damage it does, when I've been hired as a consultant over the years for so many different locations, and I can see the damage that crystallization is doing, I cannot ethically endorse that product. I cannot ethically have my guys do it and tell my customers that, yes, I'm really concerned about your floors and about your investment. Okay? Now, if I was just concerned about making a buck and I didn't care about my customer, sure, I'd be crystallizing everything. I'd make a lot more money per job.
Yeah, where I'm from in Silicon Valley, I don't know.
But I can't do that to my customers.
Yeah, well, my customers seem to think they know everything and really don't know anything. Take it as fact. And a lot of times they're believing the contractors when a lot of times the contractors just plain not telling them the truth. It's like buying a used car. Hey, you look great in that car.
Yeah, well, that's...
You know, when it's really, you know, good luck trying to drive it off the lot.
Everybody thought the Emperor's clothes looked good on him, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Tom, thank you very, very much for the information. I appreciate it.
Good to see you again, Dave.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm David Bonacera, and again, we're with Tom McNow with Great Northern Stone in Canada. We're here in Las Vegas, and thank you for being here, and folks, thank you for being here too. Good night.